Alright, hey, what's up guys? Today we're going to be going over the Grey Knight Detachments. I'm going to be ranking them like best to worst, essentially, in my opinion. Some of them are basically equal, but I kind of went with my personal preference for those. Other stuff that's going on, if you didn't see, we have a brand new logo. It's very cool, and I've got the intro getting animated right now, so in the next like 3 or 4 days, we'll have a brand new intro and a super cool new logo. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe, and join the Discord, and let's get right into it. Alrighty, so just a reminder about this. This is kind of my personal ranking. Obviously, if you guys are having success with one of these lists, I'm not trying to make you feel bad or anything like that. This is just kind of where I think they are with the intention of like winning a 5-round or higher tournament. Okay, so I think all these attachments are realistically viable in like normal / casual play, and for sure like RTTs. But I'm playing Warhammer, like, you know, my goal is to kind of win events or do really well at big events. So that's kind of the criteria that I'm using for these lists. So first one, unfortunately, I think the worst Grey Knight detachment currently is Hollow Conclave. You know, and again, not all these attachments are unplayable, terrible. They do have some redeeming qualities, so I want to do my best to kind of highlight what it can do and then sort of address what I think it does not do well. So pros of Hollow Conclave, obviously you can fall back, shoot and charge with Terminators, so you're never stuck in combat, which can be very annoying. So you can never be tied down. You're always going to be activating your Terminator units every turn that they're alive, essentially. You're never going to be stuck in combat. There are realistic matchups in the game that do have a hard time dealing with 3 wound guys that are 2 up, 4 up. However, you know, in a bigger tournament, that's not super common, but you can get away with kind of rolling some matchups that maybe you're stat checking a little bit. If you go like librarian spam, it can be kind of annoying for shooting armies to take care of you because of the 18-inch lone op, and the librarians shoot pretty hard, and they're always going to be shooting their guns every turn of the game. The list is filled with a lot of OC, like everything in your list is OC2 and OC3, and then everything is reviving a unit. So theoretically, you could end up, if your list has 30 Terminators in it, you could end up playing the game with like 35, 36 Terminators just because of how you revive. And the enhancements are like pretty good. You have like +1, +3 attacks, I think. Free Overwatch on 5s, free heroic. It's not nothing, but they're not amazing. However, I think you do end up taking like 2 or 3 enhancements in a lot of your lists. Now, the cons, there are kind of a lot of cons, unfortunately. So it's low mobility. You know, your core of your list is moving 5 inches with no access to advance and charge. So you're just running your opponent 5 inches the whole game. Yeah, you have rapid ingress and things like that to help get into melee, but the reality is you're most likely not going to be able to rapid and charge anything you super care about. And since you're only moving 5 inches, your opponent is going to be hitting you first more often than you hit them first, which is kind of a sad world to be in a Warhammer 40k environment. Despite being all Terminators, it actually has sort of low damage, if I'm being honest. Like, even if you go lethal hits with the bro cap and stuff like that, you have no access to rerolls. You're hitting on 2s and 3s. Like, you're 3 damage, but like then you're ruining everything that you care about mostly on 5s. So you just end up with just this weird thing where you don't have a lot of damage with anything. So you're going to be ramming your Terminators into stuff and bouncing off more often than not. And let's call it what it is. When you look at top armies in the game, Death Guard, Imperial Knights, Chaos Knights, Eldari, you know, all those armies, they all have the tools to kill Terminators, you know, between dev wounds, just a bunch of volume AP1, AP2, ignore cover stuff. Like, Terminators just aren't as durable as they should be. Now, I think Paladins should probably be 4 wounds, but that's like a different discussion. But you'll find that the durability on Terminators is like mostly fake, and your opponent is just going to be able to run them down and kill them, and then you're like, oh, cool, you killed 4 of them, I'll hit you back with 2, and then like you just slowly bleed out and lose the game because your models are just dying because your opponent gets to hit them first every time. And then lastly, unless you're sticking a really strong Rapid or a Land Raider, you just have no good delivery system for these guys. And in a Land Raider, you can like 5 in a character can be in a Crusader or / Redeemer, right? And that doesn't really, you know, we don't really care about delivering that. And then the Redeemer gets no bonuses from the detachment that I'm aware of. So the Redeemer just ends up dying. Like, don't love this attachment. I think it's really cool. Terminators are badass. But if you're trying to spam Terminators, I think there are other detachments that do that job a lot better. So power level rating, I'm going to go 3 out of 10. And power level essentially is the damage, like a combination of everything, damage output, just the detachment ability to kill your opponent / win games. Alrighty, and let's move on to number 5. All right, next up we have Augurium Task Force. Forgive me if I pronounced that incorrectly. It pains me to put this one so low. However, I think this is a pretty applicable spot for what it does on the table. So this is definitely the most tricky / interesting detachment, I think, in my opinion. It might have some potential to like mess around with some lethal hitting 5 paladins and stuff, but overall, it just feels like you're just doing cool tricks in front of your opponent while they kill you is like kind of how I felt about this attachment. So what does it do well? So pros, it's really flexible in its board presence because you can stay on the table, score primary, and then theoretically pick up 2 different things after you see your secondaries and score primary. You can do some interesting stuff with a Tech Marine where you like hit a Dread Knight before it gets picked up or something like that. It's like not nothing. However, you're just still susceptible to the same stuff. Like just because you're picking up at a different timing doesn't mean you're going to be you're not going to be screened out or whatever to do whatever you want. So that matters there. I think late game, it does come into effect a lot more than maybe turns 1 through 3. Like once the board starts to clear up a little bit, you can do a lot more interesting stuff with less units. So that's very cool. There's definitely varied list building options here. My gut says to go like really Terminator and Strike Marine squad heavy, because if you can get those Terminators into melee with those crit 5 lethals, they can definitely clean up a lot of the game. And the Strike squads can run around the board at OC 10, sticky stuff, and then pick up. It's kind of a cool concept. I just think that you're going to find yourself like, okay, cool, my opponent's standing on objective, can't kill him. What do I do? And then you're in this weird thing where it's like not using your detachment rule because you need to stay in charge stuff. It ends up being like, bleh. And then honestly, probably the coolest part of this detachment is that if you go first, you can spend that 1 CP. It's called like, I can't remember. I think it's called Redirected Strike. You can spend 1 CP and pick up like a Paladin brick for free with like a GM, right? And then hold it and then rapid ingress it on your opponent's turn. It's pretty cool. It's pretty neat. Like if your opponent doesn't have the tools to like have a really good screen out, you can just rapid ingress this unit in a really, really relevant spot, like literally turn 0, which is really super cool. And then the crit 5 strat is supposed to be really good. I wish they gave us like literally anything else to crit on 5s besides paladins and silencers. Silencers with that type of volume, by the way, actually bang. If you shoot like a 10-man paladin unit with crit 5 silencers, they actually do shred like anything that doesn't have a 2-up armor save pretty well, honestly, just because of the volume of damage that you get through. And other pros, I mean, this is sort of a Grey Knight pro in general, but you do score your secondaries really well, and you're able to commit less units like on primary because you can score it then pick up, right? So cons, there's like no durability strats. I mean, this is sort of a common issue across the Grey Knight detachments, right? Besides the -1 to hit for walkers for some reason. If it was everybody, that would be kind of cool, but you get to that, and then you can pick up if your opponent deep strikes within 12. It's like they just deep strike 12.1 away, right? And then shoot you with their guns anyway. Like it's a pseudo 12-inch screen out, I guess. But if your opponent's dropping in something that with the intention of killing Terminators, like that thing is going to be able to shoot 12 inches and you're just cooked anyways, right? Now, I haven't really played Augurium that much, so maybe this comes up a lot more often. So if it does, definitely comment, let me know that I'm wrong. But I can't see why my opponent would like let me trigger this, right? Then the next one is there's really no consistent way to increase your like shooting output / damage. You have no access to rerolls on either side. Literally all you have is crit 5s on the silencers, and then that's not really going to solve a ton of problems that you're having. And then also in melee, there's no rerolls to hit anywhere. You have the purifiers to reroll to wound, but that's really it. So overall power rating, I kind of feel like Augurium is a 5 out of 10. And do I think I could go to like maybe an RTT or a GT and like do decent with this? I actually do think so. I think that turn 1 play with the rapid and pickups does allow for some really flexible play. However, you're just going to run into a scenario where you just don't have the output to take care of anything that really is damage check. And you've also just got no durability to really trade with. So I think this is probably a pretty solid spot for it. It's a pretty unexplored attachment, especially for me. So, if you guys have worked on it and done well with it, definitely let me know. But I think right now this feels pretty fair placement for it. Okay, so the next 4 I think are all super viable detachments. I think the order of them actually really just comes down to player preference on the style of it. So if you guys think, oh, Brotherhood's supposed to be 3 or 2, just really think about the other ones and then like understand that it is very reasonable to expect this one to be the 4th best. So let's really dig into it. So Brotherhood Strike is very cool. I think it's a super awesome detachment. I just really get worried about losing essentially all your buffs because you don't pick up. Like there's a lot of turns in like mid to late turns of the game where you need to stay down on the table, and losing any kind of consistency because you stay on the table is very sad. Also, you lose access to like most of your strats. So pros, it has free access to hit and wound rerolls. So you're an army that hits on 3s mostly, and you reroll 1s to hit, and then you're rerolling 1s to wound, where a lot of your stuff is wounding on 3s, 4s or better, right? So it does add a lot of efficiency to your shooting, but that is only when you drop in from Deep Strike specifically, okay? So you don't always have this, and it doesn't last the whole turn. So if you rapid ingress and then do a charge next turn, you have no buffs. So it makes the rapid plays a little redundant sometimes. So it's very sad there. Now, if you were to rapid and then heroic, you would get the bonuses, but that's kind of like, it's like whatever. Like a decent play is rapid in like an incinerator unit, right? And then do an Overwatch, rerolling 1s to wound. Like that's real, I suppose. It's 2 CP investment for that, but is what it is. The stratagems in Brotherhood are very good. I think all of them are like actually legitimately useful and have a purpose like when you're playing. Problem is 2 of them are 2 CP, which is kind of sad. So you've got Dev Wounds, which is 2 CP. You have a Pseudo Mists, which I like it. It's a little more situational than Mists directly, but it's kind of cool. Basically, it says if your opponent does a fallback move, you get to leave the table, which is cool. It allows you to get stuck in combat and essentially negate getting shot with infantry, which is fun. Sustained hits on the drop, 1 CP. When you come in from Deep Strike, you get sustained hits. That's pretty badass. I don't know if it's actually stealth, but you get -1 to hit, point and click -1 to hit, which is super cool. And then you have a 6-inch Deep Strike, which is another really cool tool that you have access to. So again, all this stuff's very good, and maybe this detachment's supposed to be 3rd best, but that's definitely a coin flip. And once I play some more games, it very, very well could change. Another big pro is you can pick up 4 things with an enhancement, which is really cool. Having 4 things go up is awesome. It helps maximize the amount of hit and wound rerolls that you have over the course of a game. So I'm definitely cool with that. And then you're just very consistent on your drop turns when you're shooting and doing your damage, especially with Paladins. You essentially never miss with Paladins. And if you drop in like a 10-man crow unit with like side cannons or whatever, you can plug sustained hits on them. And now you're like hitting on 3s with sustained rerolling 1s. So you end up being really accurate with Crow's unit there. So definitely super cool tools to win games with this attachment. Now, cons is there's basically minimal to no access to any kind of good buffs or strats if you stay on the table. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the only one really that we would care about is like the Dev Wound one, which don't get me wrong, on Paladins it's pretty badass. It shreds through a lot of stuff, especially with a GM. So you only make it, if you have a GM on foot with them, you only cost 1 CP for it, which is cool. Since you do get like a lot of your damage boost from deep striking, if your opponent screens out in a way that you can't drop in and shoot the stuff you want to shoot, you're just never going to get much out of your detachment rule. Now, as the game goes on, you'll slowly ramp up and get more and more opportunities to shoot the stuff that you want. However, it can be very annoying against a lot of different matchups. It's a very CP heavy detachment. You really want to use the 2 CP Dev Wound 1, you've got 2 CP pickup from engagement range, but you end up just like all the stuff you want to do is like CP for all your damage and stuff. So you end up just looking at like, okay, cool, I have no CP to do anything like later in the game. Because you also keep in mind we're wanting to like rapid ingress and stuff too, right? So it ends up being a little frustrating there. And also too, as you get more comfortable playing Grey Knights, you're going to understand like, hey, I really want to stay down here on this turn, and I don't want to pick up because I need to go make this easier charge or whatever. So then you end up just standing there with no buffs of any kind, and it ends up being a little frustrating. I've played probably 4 games or 5 games with Brotherhood, and that's like super real. because it feels like goofy just if you're 5 inches away from somebody to like, okay, I want my damage up to pick it up and deep strike it 9 inches away just to shoot them or whatever. It just feels a little clunky at times, but this attachment I think is super good and is super playable. I'll give it a 7 out of 10 on the power level. I believe that I certainly could go win an RTT, and I definitely would say I could go 4-1 like a GT with it. Like, and then maybe like maybe 5-0 against really favorable matchups, but I would not bet any kind of money on that. I think 4-1 is probably what we're looking at for a GT. Like 3-2 seems like very reasonable for it. Definitely a good solid attachment, and does deserve some amount of testing and effort to see if we can figure something out with it. All right, Sanctic Spearhead. A very interesting detachment. Now, I think it's super realistic that you could flip this in Brotherhood. And I think these are like our battling for like 3 and 4, in my opinion. And then I think the next 2 are battling for 1 and 2. I think that's like a very realistic placement for these. So if you think Brotherhood is better than this, I would not have any like concern about that at all. But this is just kind of where I have it. If I was to play in an event, I think that I would have a better opportunity with this, mainly because of the way that the meta is shaped right now, where it's a little more vehicle monster heavy / skewed to where the +1 to wound strat really can carry you through some matchups. So Sanctic Spearhead gives vehicles auto advance 6 and assault, which means that your Razorbacks are going 18 inches, your NDKs are always going 14. This is like a very flexible thing. You can run through walls, etc., etc. So what is this attachment good at? High mobility on your vehicles. Being able to max advance, as we know from the index attachment that we've lost, is super handy, and it really helps with consistency on certain plays that you're trying to do. Tell you what, an 18-inch moving Razorback is pretty badass. So that is for sure good. The +1 to wound immediate vehicle and monster strat straight up is the reason I have this detachment where it is. And now keep in mind that +1 to wound vehicle and monster is not vehicle locked. So you can use it on your purifiers, you can use it on your paladins, you can use it on your strike squad, you can use it on anything you want in your army as long as you're attacking a vehicle or monster, which is super significant. Now all of a sudden your purifiers, your 10-man purifier unit or whatever, is charging into melee. If your thing is T11 or lower, they're wounding on 4s with full rerolls to hit, full rerolls to wound. So that ends up being like 75% of your hits through are going to wound on that, right? And that's just very awesome. Your Storm Raven can go 26 inches through a wall, +1 to wound with all of its twin-linked meltas and last cannons and stuff, and just nuke vehicles and things like that. Now, I don't love that play particularly, but I've seen a lot of people have success with that type of play pattern. You know, Dread Knights get +1 to wound with their silencers, with their side cannon, +1 to wound with their melta. Like, this strat, you're going to be using like 4 turns out of the game, probably 4 of your 5 turns. You're probably going to be plugging this onto something, and it's just very strong and very good. I think this is the best attachment for a Storm Raven because of the strat I just mentioned, and also Storm Ravens are just a bitch to move around the table. These are gigantic, by the way. If you guys haven't tried to play a Storm Raven in real life and you're building lists, it's horrible to move around the table. So being able to just like 1 CP, I'm going to fly this thing through a wall 26 inches and then shoot. It removes a lot of the annoyance of like trying to move it around with its wings bumping into buildings and stuff. It really allows the Storm Raven to get maximum potential, and you can like hit it with a Tech Marine and make it hit on 2s, whatever. Now, flexible list building, for sure. The idea that all of a sudden now we aren't going to be bouncing off super heavy armor and super high toughness things is super valuable to me. So you can build your list. You could theoretically build this list with like Razorbacks and infantry, right? And maybe like 2 Dread Knights, and then you're just going to be spamming the +1 to wound strat, and you can just go fight your opponent, right? Super relevant, I think. GMNDKs, notably, are just horrible to get into melee with something that you want, but being able to stage it behind a wall and have it run through a wall and charge a tank or charge something you care about is super significant. And I think that is like another gigantic reason this attachment is very playable. You can also ram a Land Raider Redeemer through a wall, which is cool, but nothing crazy there. And then lastly, the enhancement, Sigil of Exigence, whatever, is just badass. It was from the index. It's the same. If you get targeted to be shot, you can literally go pick up, go down. So you can put it on a Terminator brick. You can put it on GMNDK, so he gets essentially like free shots. It's really cool. And this attachment has a lot of juice because of that. Now, cons. Every vehicle you want to use anything on is 200 plus points, right? Your NDKs are 225, your Storm Raven's 280, your Redeemer's 280. So it's kind of annoying to have to like, okay, I'm exposing this to go do something that I want, and now it's like going to die. You're very rarely going to make your points back on a lot of this stuff. So that's one thing about the Storm Raven. It like doesn't often make its points back. So just be very mindful of that. Outside of like the Razorback plays with like interceptors or purifiers, this list does not trade very well because you are investing a lot of points in those big ass vehicles. So you're going to be relying a lot on them to clean up stuff, and they don't have any rerolls in this attachment, right? You're still like, but Storm Raven rerolls wounds, but nothing in this attachment rerolls hits in like anywhere except the GM NDK and melee, right? So you're just relying on just raw 3-up shooting most of the game, and then I know you guys will agree that sometimes you just shoot 6 side cannons and hit with 2 of them or hit with 1 of them, and you just feel terrible, right? So just really keep in mind, you're going to be trading down a lot, and your goal is going to be take out your opponent's key pieces with this really fast moving stuff, and ideally continue to play the game well. It does use a lot of CP. You're going through walls. You're going +1 to wound. You're going rapid ingress. You're going heal 3 wounds. You're going fallback, shoot, and charge. Like, there's a lot of CP investment into this attachment. So the GM NDKs are really helpful, soaking up some of that CP. But don't be afraid to discard. If you have a scoreable secondary for like 2 or 3 points, don't be afraid to just discard that thing and take CP so you can continue to go kill your opponent. And the last one, I touched on it a little bit already. You have no access to rerolls in shooting. Really. So you're just playing the game. You're playing raw 40k mostly on most of your guns. And if it goes bad, it goes bad. You know what I'm saying? +1 to wound really helps. But if you miss all your shots, +1 to wound doesn't matter, right? So overall power rating, 7 out of 10. I've got it same as Brotherhood. I think if I was to roll up to an event with this, I'd go three GM NDK, Storm Raven, double Razorback, two Purifiers, 2 Interceptors, Strike Squad, and kind of fill out whatever is left from there. Go play the game and see what the Storm Raven can kill. That's kind of the name of the game, I think, when you play Spearhead. So really cool detachment. I think it's super solid. And let's move on to number 2. Maybe it'll surprise you. All right, here we go. Number 2, I think, is Warpbane. Yes. Start typing your comment about how I'm wrong. But let me explain, and maybe after I'm done explaining, you will agree with me. So, Warpbane I have as number 2. Again, if you think it's the best attachment in this book, I'm not going to yell at you or anything like that. However, I personally think it's the second best attachment here just because of the following reasons, right? So let's talk about why it's good. So why is it good? It is the highest damage attachment pretty much by far in this book. You're when you're in hollow ground, you're hitting with basically every shot. You're hitting on 3s, full rolls to hit. Super cool. Even when you're not in hollow ground, you get the Brotherhood detachment, half of the Brotherhood detachment rule for free all the time, and in melee. You don't have to come down, whatever. So just in that regard, it is outclasses Brotherhood in straight up like consistency, right? You've got a 6-inch deep strike and charge. And then Purifiers just bang in this attachment. I've played a few games with it. Like the 5-man Purifier can just flip 3-up save units. Like it doesn't, like nothing. It's super cool. Out of a Razorback, they just annihilate most like chaff and a lot of like medium infantry in it. Like you go double side cannon, you just come out, you nuke like most skirmishing stuff, all skirmishing units, and like even some medium infantry, you just can like shred with Purifiers. It's really, really strong. And that's really it. Like, I know that's not that's not like a long list of why it's good, but the reasons why it's good are so strong that alone carries this attachment to like the placement that I do have it at, right? So you're able, when you get the lines on your opponent, when your opponent has their things positioned in a way where you can go just nuke it with Dread Knights and Purifiers, like this attachment feels like, why the heck would I ever play anything else? This attachment is broken. It is so strong. Everyone's wrong for thinking this isn't the best attachment, right? But as someone who I consider myself good at this game, and I consider the opponents that I play very good at this game as well, I've found that when Warpbane it really, really struggles against high-level players at this game. All right, so I'm going to break that down in just a second. Let's talk about the other cons before I really get into it. So outside of the 6-inch deep strike, the strats are terrible. They're just like ass. Like sometimes you get shot with AP4 and you're like, cool, I can go 4-up armor save or 4-up invulnerable save with my unit. But like -2 charge is okay. The fake fight phase mortal thing is situational at best, and then you just spend a CP and do nothing sometimes. Like the one where you use it at the start of the movement phase and your opponent just is like, oh, so I just don't end there and you just wasted 1 CP. It's like, yeah, actually, that's pretty accurate. It's just like the strats are terrible. You find yourself using command point rerolls all the time, like rapid ingress. Like the strats are just basically unplayable outside of the 6-inch deep strike. So that's like very sad. You have no relevant defensive or evasive strats. You basically, unit comes out, it shoots something really well because that's what the detachment's good at, and then it stands there and rolls saves until it dies. That is exactly the play pattern for Warpbane in most scenarios. Your hope is that when you pop out and kill something, you're going to pop out and kill something better than your opponent doesn't die and kills you, right? That is the entire name of the game when you're playing this attachment. So, and then also, and this is honestly probably my biggest gripe with this attachment, is that if your opponent doesn't, like, so if you don't handle your opponent's profiles well, like in terms of their toughness, durability, et cetera, you just have no other tools to win Warhammer. You have no strats that are good. Your mobility is like whatever. You're still getting screened like normal armies. Like you go out and do something, then you stand there. So when you go out and do something, your hope is that you kill everything that'll kill you back. And just is like this very weirdly annoying game to play. Now I know you're gonna go, oh guys, I watched Warpbane killed 1,200 points of Death Guard like in a single turn. Like, yeah, it's gonna definitely do that. But like, there also is going to be some games where you're like, oh shoot, I can't catch a line of anything that I care about, and then, oh, I'm going to shoot this thing and it's got a 4-up invulnerable save and I did 5 damage to it, now I die. There's no counterplay. Your counterplay is to attack them. You attack them and hope they die. And if they don't die, you just are like, oops, here we go. See what happens. Let me roll my 4-up save and my 3-up armor saves, whatever. And it just becomes very frustrating to play. And I've played a ton of games with Warpbane prior to the new book. I played a few games after the book, and I assure you, like, as you guys get better at this game and you're at the top tables, you're playing some of the best players that play this game, you're gonna be like, wow, Warpbane is not comfortable. Like, this game just feels like it is completely out of my control to win. And I think that going from games being like fully in control to like, oh, I won because I did like this thing happen is just a huge difference in like player skill, basically. Like when you walk out of a game with Warpbane, there's going to be times where you're just like, yeah, I only won that game because he failed more saves than he was supposed to. Or I only won that game because he rushed out his whole army for no reason and I got to shoot it with my whole army and kill it. Like, you're not going to be coming back to your friends like, dude, I outplayed him so hard that game. Like, I did this and this and this, and that caused him to have to do that. That just doesn't happen when you play Warpbane. And again, it sounds like I'm shitting on this attachment. It's very good. It's still a very good attachment, and it is easily in conversation for the best attachment in this book. However, I think it's number 2, and I give it a 9 out of 10. And now you're going to see that I put an 8 out of 10 on the next one, and I'm going to explain why. But Warpbane will kill your opponent. It's going to dominate mid-tables. It's going to have the highest win rate probably in this codex for the life of the book. But I promise, guys, if you sit down and really analyze your games and you want to learn how to play Banishers, I'm telling you, your win rate is going to be better into good players, and you're going to start to feel a lot more proud of yourself when you're leaving these games. So that's Warpbane. Again, if I'm wrong, you guys yell in the comments. I know you're going to throw the 50% win rate. Banishers at a 27% last weekend, but I've been playing this game long enough. I've been playing Grace long enough. I believe that this is a super valid take. And I promise, guys, just lay down Warpbane for like 2 weeks. Go grind Banishers. Go play 10, 15 games of Banishers. And really, really look at your games. And you're going to find that Banishers just has the tools to win high-level games of Warhammer. All right, spoiler alert. I think Banishers is the best attachment in this book. And I'm going to tell you why. So, pros. I believe that this attachment has all the tools you need to win high-level games of Warhammer 40k. I'm not talking about Dumpster and your buddy who's played 20 games in his life. I'm talking about you're playing against someone who's played hundreds of games of 40k. You're at top table 4-0 at a GT. I believe Banishers has the tools to win those rounds, okay? So it's really flexible into most matchups in the game via sustained lethal. You're able to clean up infantry with sustained hits. Your lethal hits you can plug into your non-purifiers to help take down tanks and vehicles. Your paladins can take lethal hits. It ends up being really flexible into killing stuff, and the strats are all really good and very flexible. So I believe you can truly win playing this attachment by straight up outplaying your opponent in a lot of different scenarios. If I'm a master banisher player, which I don't think that I am for what it's worth, I think I'm very good at banishers, but if I'm a master banisher player and I make zero mistakes and I do every single optimal play with Miss and Shadows of Anarch, I think you can beat any matchup in the game, genuinely. Now, there are some that are going to be really hard, and some are going to feel a little bit swingy on some dice, but like I don't believe that you're entering any game of Warhammer when you're playing Banishers that you cannot win. That is just my genuine thought. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but that is just where I'm at with this attachment at the moment. Missademos Shadows of Anarch is just insane. This allows you to do so many cool things on the table. You put your opponent in such weird spots with the way you do things. It allows you to use the resources for free. And, you know, it's just really fun and flexible. And when you set up a Shadows play, a Shadows of Anarch / Missademos play, where your opponent's just like, wow, so I just can't move. And you're like, yeah, you can't move. If you want to play primary, you can't move. And if you do move, I get to leave the table and I lose nothing for the turn that I just did. And over the course of 3-4 turns of this, it will just add up. And you're just doing awesome plays with this. And you're going to feel really satisfied with the way that you play the game. And the enhancements are pretty solid as well. 66 Seal is really strong. It gives your whole unit +1 AP in shooting. Pyrosoul, you know, Pyrosoul's fun. It's a guaranteed 1 mortal wounds, 1 to 3 mortal wounds. It's pretty cool. Doesn't need, it just happens. You just go boom, roll D3, take damage, bro. Hedra Sigil, throw it on a GM NDK, and you reroll once to hit and shooting. That's enough consistency for that guy, right? Now, Saturation is not perfect. In fact, I think no Grey Knight Detachment is perfect. However, I do think this one is very strong. So some cons for it. It does have it does have a very high learning curve, in my opinion. I'm not just saying that because it's my detachment and want to seem like I'm so cool and good at this game. I do believe that it's a high learning curve because in your first few games, you're going to be like, I'm going to run out this unit in the middle of nowhere and it's going to kill like some scouts. And then I'm gonna be like, oh, Shadows of Anarch sucks because my opponent never triggers it. That is correct. You have to force them to trigger it via positioning. So, and then, you know, oh, I didn't roll. I went 1 for 4 on rolling my detachment roll. Yeah, well, don't plan for it. You should be planning to kill stuff without it. Like the detachment roll, I always treat it as a bonus versus something that's necessity. Now, other times where you're like, wow, I really need my lethals here. Sure. That's real. But like most of the time when you're putting the right amount of effort into killing something, that stuff is just going to be a bonus and you're going to be like, oh, hell yeah, dude, I got sustain. Let's go. And it feels really good. It does still struggle to kill specific profiles in Warhammer, but that's every Grey Knight Detachment struggles to kill specific profiles in this game, right? I think it's better to lean into the style of play where we can outplay our opponent and do really cool, interesting plays to win versus bank on damage like something in Warpbane, right? Because when we're banking on damage, we're just not going to have it sometimes and it's going to feel really bad and we're going to lose. But when you bank on, you know, scoring primary, denying primary, cool tricks with Shadows of Anarch, missed rapid into like denying primary 3 turns with 1 unit, like you just start to feel so much better about the play pattern of your games. And then last thing, the cons, like, in the mini games I play with Banishers, I've had very few like blowout wins. Now, I've lost 2 times with Banishers since the books came out, and most of all my wins are like anywhere from 10 to like 20 point wins, 10 to 15 point wins, right? Because you're playing this pace game where you are denying your opponent and scoring primary yourself, and it ends up you end up just with like these 4 or 5 turn games where you're just in control of the entire game and like almost everything that is happening, and it feels so good and so satisfying. And then lastly, like power level, I give it an 8. And now, oh, Garrett, well, Warpbane was a 9, so how can this be better than Warpbane? Well, Warpbane does more damage. It does a lot more damage, if I'm being honest. So straight up, the power level of that is going to be higher because it does more damage. But to reiterate kind of what I started with at the start of this, Banishers, when you understand and learn the play patterns and learn the layouts and learn where I can place my Paladin brick to where my opponent cannot move without forcing miss or shadows, you just unlock this new level of play with Grey Knights that I believe is going to be the best way to play this army going forward. So that's all I have today, guys. I felt like I talked really well in this video. Actually, I'm trying to limit the ums and likes and etc. So, you know, keep watching, like and subscribe. I really appreciate you guys hanging out with the channel. We're at 1,300 subscribers, so it's really cool. I'm gonna have a new intro probably by the next video. The logo is new, and I think it's really sick. And yeah, I started the Patreon. It's like whatever. I don't expect any money from you guys, okay? But I do have a Patreon. If anyone is interested in supporting me, I'll have that link in the description. But like right now, I'm just really enjoying making content, making Grey Knight stuff. The next video is gonna be non-Grey Knight specific, talking about deployment and how to look at the game from before you even start, how to win the game in deployment, etc., etc. So that is it today. Thank you guys. Have a good one. Happy Labor Day.